Hello and welcome to another episode of the Business Spotlight series. My name is Claudia Thompson and I'm here today with Daniel Smith, founder and CEO of Fireworx. Welcome to our show.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Why don't you start by telling us who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. As you say, I run a company called Fireworx. We're a digital creative and marketing agency. We've been going now in our 16th year, and we have got offices in Bournemouth on the sunny south coast, although not so much at the moment, and in London as well. And I guess if I kind of start off with maybe just giving a bit of an overview on what we do and kind of why we do it. As I say to clients, we're in a really noisy, busy world, and getting people to remember anything about stuff is hard. In fact, I've nicked that quote from Steve Jobs back in 1997 when he came back into Apple, and he said those famous words when he came back in. Well, we kind of fundamentally believe that is 1,000 times harder in 2023. And so our job, I guess, is to help clients stand out, stand for something meaningful, and communicate that in a way that engages, informs, educates, or entertains people, so that their brands kind of live in their target prospect customers' minds. And we work with a whole host of different clients to kind of do that. Our focus is very much on helping clients establish a value proposition. In other words, why buy from them? And do that in a way that communicate across a series of different marketing communications. So that can cover everything from the marketing strategy, so how to go out. And normally, for most of our clients, is around they want more, they want growth, they want to find more customers. Or it can be about how they set themselves apart in a very crowded marketplace. And that can look at things such as brand identity, the creative look and feel, website development, and digital marketing, of which at the moment that covers everything from Google all the way through to social media. So that's very much what we do. We do it with a whole host of different clients, from global clients, ones you may not have ever heard of, such as Thermo Fisher, which is large in the pharmaceuticals industry, 40 billion a year revenues, all the way through to small startups. And at the moment, we've got a number of which are focusing very specifically on artificial intelligence and trying to capitalize on that. That might be in the kind of voice market. So one of our clients, for example, has just been looking at trying to work with the Alexa app to help older independents communicate with them where they suffer from loneliness and maybe people aren't around them. So we have a whole host of clients that we work with delivering on those kind of marketing needs.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And you've obviously been going for quite a while and you have a number of offices. What would you attribute your growth to?
Well, that's a really good question. I think we've been really focused on delivering a high quality product. And so our service delivery and what we go about has really driven, I think, for us reputationally, a place where people come to when they're looking for something that's slightly different and looking for something that's going to help them stand out. So we very much live and breathe what we talk to clients about, and our positioning is to think disruptive. And so I think we have got a reputation of disruptive thinking and for being the helping clients become a challenger and to really stand out. And I think that nailing that and getting that right, our own proposition right, and then delivering on that promise has really helped us to carve a particular niche for ourselves and a name for ourselves. That and probably just a mix of my own personal kind of fear of failing, which continues to drive me today, and this idea that I think we want to kind of continue to challenge ourselves to kind of what can we do better, look at where there are areas for improvements and trying to keep refining. That's probably where I would say whether we've I wouldn't say we've gone exponential growth, because I think I'm far too hands-on even now. But we've managed to continue to deliver a quality product over the past 16 years.
Fantastic. And if you had to start all over again from square one, is there anything that you would do differently now?
Oh my gosh. No doubt there would be things. I mean, I think I was thinking about this quite recently. What would I would do differently? As it's a well-worn phrase, say that people are can fundamentally make or I think break a business. So I think that I haven't always got that bit right. I know, especially probably in the first half of my career, because before I had Fireworx, I ran a company called Clockworks, which was part of a large print and fulfillment organization. And I probably was so focused on the delivery of the work and not necessarily as much on the people and making sure that I was spending enough time with people. And I think if I had my time again, I would love to spend a bit more time nurturing and developing people. And I've tried to do that more over the last sort of 5 to 10 years. I think also a big lesson for me is for any business owners that have got equity within a business. I got told a long time to be very careful about who you give equity to and how that works in the business. And I probably didn't always make some of the right choices with regards to that. And I think if I could go back over my time again, I'd probably revisit that and be very careful about who was brought into that kind of into the business in that regard. And also bringing the right types of people to help the organization to grow. So being in the kind of creative industries as we are, I think what you naturally get is you get people that are very creative thinking, but they aren't necessarily the best finance people or the best, let's say, processed people, because there's a level, different character attributes that people have. And I think that bringing on slightly different people with different attributes and identifying those earlier on as where the holes are in the business and really looking to plug those holes, those are things that I would definitely look to change.
Yeah. And on that note, so you touched on it, what is it that you look for in an employee? What stands out to you in the interview phase, or what you're looking for?
Well, for me, we're looking for somebody that can live and breathe our own values. And one of our core values is to challenge. So that's to challenge our clients to do the best job we can, but also to challenge each other. So I really look for people that are able to ask really good questions, to challenge thinking, to show a level of passion and enthusiasm. So, one of the questions I always ask somebody who's coming in, especially coming into our kind of industry, is can they name maybe a campaign or a piece of design work or a website or a TV ad, something that they've seen. And it's amazing how many people stumble when I ask them that question and they almost can't recall anything. And I use that as a yardstick really to work out whether these are people that are really passionate about the industry they're in. Now, that's not for everybody because there might be a digital marketeer that we're bringing on board or a social, but even with social media people, I'm really looking for people that have got their sort of finger on the pulse, that are really understanding what's currently going on, and people that are able to, I think, like everything, you want to culturally have the right fit of people within the organization, but we don't necessarily want a load of yes people. We want people that are going to, in some ways, ruffle some feathers, maybe, challenge some thinking in certain ways, and really help us deliver the best kind of outcomes for clients. So those sort of attributes I look for when we're recruiting, and people that are really keen to learn and grow and develop. Yeah, those are the kind of key things.
Okay, cool. Sounds like an exciting place to work.
It can be, lots of things. It can be fun. We try and have lots of fun. I like the fact that I think within the culture, I think everyone feels that there's no things said behind closed doors or that kind of thing. I think everything's put out on the table. Everybody feels like very much a family feel, I think, to how we get on, from taking the mickey out of each other, and also trying to congratulate people as well when they do a good job. I think that's something you forget about maybe sometimes when you're running at pace, is to stop and take a breath and go, actually, that was a really good job that was done on there. And it's great when we get client feedback, which says so as well, So, yeah.
Cool. Well, staying on the topic of employing staff, what do you think have been your biggest learnings as an employer since you started in business?
Well, going back to what I was saying, I think what I've learned a lot is that people sometimes need a degree of nurturing, and it doesn't have to necessarily always be. One of my personal one of the things I've realised about myself over time is that I am always looking for ways to improve, not necessarily always looking at the good that has been done. And I've tried to get better at that. So I think that trying to recognise when someone has done a good job, rather than going, okay, that was good, but I think we can work on this, this, and this, which is a lot of what I would do. Is actually saying that was a really good job that you've done there, and giving them that sense of encouragement, and that kind of sense of the achievement that they've done a really good job. So I think this is one of the biggest things for me that I've kind of picked up on, is that, you know, when you're kind of charging off at 100 miles an hour trying to do stuff, it's sometimes making the time to sit with people, maybe just to have a chat over a coffee, or just grab 5 minutes rather than waiting for an annual review or a 6 monthly catch up, kind of making that time to just ask people how they're doing. And again, I don't always get that right. I still don't get that right now necessarily, but I'm mindful of that, I think, and to work out what people want. Because I think as business, when you're running a business, you realize that you're bringing people on. They don't necessarily always see the world like you see it, or have the same outlook as you do, and that's absolutely fine. And trying to work out, well, what makes them tick, what gets them out of bed, and why is they coming to work, and what is it outside of just the money? What is it, you know? So those are the things I think that I've tried to be more mindful of. I think the other thing as well is, maybe if you can recognize, have you heard of something called ColourWorks?
It
It's a
does
color
ring
profile.
bells.
Yeah, it's a color profile. So they look at, and we talked about this the other week. It's a color profile. Well, they look at different attributes of people, and you're scored on red, green, yellow, and blue, and each attribute has got a different association to it. I think actually one of the things that I have looked at is, I think it would be really good to kind of, maybe at the outset, if you've color scored both the internal team or your existing team, to look at, well, okay, let's say that he or she is a blue or a red, or red and green, so a bit more process and a bit more higher empathy. And this person over here, like I am, I'm much more red and yellow, which is more kind of numbers and driving creativity.
I'm red and yellow as well.
You're red and yellow too. Okay, so I know that I'm really not good on the blue stuff or the green stuff, and maybe going, okay, you need to work out how, given it's not a natural kind of default position, you can bring someone to help you to enable that within the business. I think it's a really useful tool, because technically, I guess we've all got, no, I don't think anybody's perfect, and no one's necessarily 100% rounded. So, you know, understanding where your strengths are, but also where your weaknesses are, is a really good thing to help with the team overall.
Yeah. No, that's a really, really good tip, to just understand that not all people are the same, and not everyone is like ourselves, really. It's
correct.
Really, and you mentioned earlier you got some advice when you first started, and there's probably a lot of advice and a lot of misconceptions around when it comes to starting a business, running a business. But what do you think, from your experience, are the most common or the biggest misconceptions that are out there about running a business?
I think for me, one of the biggest misconceptions, which is well worn, I think, is that you know, you're the boss. So running a company means you're the boss. Therefore, you can take up as much time as you like, and you've got full control. So all the decisions are yours. And to a degree, that might, you know, outside in, you might look at that and go, yeah, that is true. But I think that that's really a misconception, because for us anyway, or for me, I've got, like, every single client of ours is technically like having a boss. You're answerable to them. They can dictate to a degree whether you're working or not working, and the hours in which you're working in some regard. And I think that, the idea of control and you can have as much time off as you want. I think I very rarely meet a business owner who have got an abundance of time, and unless they're kind of in their latter stages of their career where they go, well, actually, I've got a senior leadership team and therefore I'm kind of not active at all really in the business. It tends to be for me, you're almost busier running around trying to. And I think the other thing I worked out is, and I spoke to someone the other day and they mentioned this to me, is that when you're running a business, you have to wear lots of hats. So you have to kind of be the visionary who's where you're forward, and then the manager who's managing over the team, and you typically might be responsible for either the sales or the finance side or something like that. And I think depending on the size of your business, you can end up wearing like multiple hats, and it's really hard to be good at all of those things at all times. But a lot of businesses need that. So I think that the misconception is that you've got certain freedoms and choices when you're running a business. Of course you do. I could decide not to work at all, but I don't know if the business would necessarily survive if I decided not to. That for me would probably be the biggest thing that you don't realize maybe when you're looking to either start in business or to escalate it beyond that, is the sacrifices sometimes that you have to make, taking your laptop away on holiday, checking on emails, all the time, not interrupting your personal life. And I think that mix between your personal life and the business life, I think is a bit of a misconception. I think it can become all consuming, very hard for you to have stresses and then go, oh, it's a weekend, that's fine, I'll just switch off. I don't think it necessarily switches off for a lot of business owners.
And to dig a bit deep on that one, you said it can be a bit all-consuming, but how do you balance your personal life with the demands of running a business?
I mean, that's something I think I haven't necessarily done well over the years. And I'm separated from my ex-wife now. And I'm sure, well, I know, I know that one of her criticisms was that I was a workaholic. And I think that is really challenging on your personal life. And like I said earlier, it can become quite all consuming. Especially I think when if you're a smaller business and a lot of it is on you as a business owner to make sure it's delivered, to keep a promise. I think a lot of business owners I know are quite ethical and they want to make sure they're delivering on the promise they've made. And I think for a large part of my career, it's not something I necessarily got right. I've tried since then, ironically, I have tried to carve out time so that if I'm with my children, that I'll maybe not just keep checking on the phone. It's so easy to check on your phone and check on emails and that kind of thing, and you get sort of in this trap, I think, rather than just walk away from it. So again, if I was giving someone or myself advice from 20 years ago, I probably would say just ensure that you try and carve out time and to a degree switch off from it, because most times, 9 times out of 10, an email, if anything's that bad, you'll typically get a phone call or a text message to say there's a problem. And I really can only think in 26 years of being in business, I can maybe think of less than a handful of times where I felt that would be a need.
So making sure you carve out some time for yourself is important.
And rules of that time. Yes, if you're going to carve it out, but maybe say taking a Friday afternoon off and then checking your phone every 10 minutes for emails. You're not really present. And I think that one thing I've always suffered with, I think, is being present, being in the moment when, say with your children and you're at a park or something like that, and then you're checking your phone every 10 minutes or half an hour or whatever, you're not necessarily there in that moment in time. You're kind of thinking of other things or what's happening next. I think that can be a problem for a lot of people, is people in business can be thinking about what's happening next, not what you're doing right there and then.
Okay. So not just fence some time off, but build a proper wall around that,
maybe
that time
yourself.
to make sure you're really present where you are.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really, I still get this fundamentally wrong all the time. people say don't check your phone first thing in the morning. I still check my phone first thing in the morning. I know I shouldn't do, and I know it should, habitual, but I cannot stop myself sometimes from doing it, which is nuts, isn't it? Because I know it's not necessarily the best thing to do, but I think habits can form in business quite easily. You get like, and also, another thing I would say is, if you're in business, if you're not running at 100 miles an hour, you think that something's wrong, or you feel like you maybe aren't trying hard enough, and you can beat yourself up a bit, I think. So yeah, trying to tell yourself to take the time, I think would be a really good thing, and trying to commit to doing that, and to ring fence that, as you say, and kind of make some rules for yourself, I think would be good.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. This wraps up our interview today. Thank you so much for all your insights. They were truly very, very valuable. And yeah, thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much, Claudia. It was really good to speak to you today.
All right. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.